So what I have is just a piece of cardstock, and on the first one I used a 4-inch piece. On this one I'm going to use like a 2.5-inch piece. It was left over, and I think that maybe having a slightly smaller strip at the edge would be just fine with the wire that supports it. So I went ahead and marked it on the edge. I just measured it out and marked it with my little fingernail there. That shows where half is. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take our handy dandy board here. Got a little tool in there. And I'm just going to make a score all the way down. This board has grooves in it, and this little tool fits right in the grooves. One of the best tools I ever bought, actually. So I've already marked it out, and I'm just going to go ahead and make my little score. And you can see there, it makes it really easy to make a really nice, clean fold. So now I'm going to make the next 2 scores, and instead of folding them directly in half, I'm going to fold, the mark is like right there. It's just a little off center on the one side, so that when you fold it, this side will be a little bit longer and this side will be a little bit shorter, and that way it'll accommodate the wire and all of the thicknesses of everything when you tape it all together without getting weird. So I'm just going to line it up and score it. And I always have to remember, like, you press really hard at the beginning and then slow down towards the end, otherwise I always would poke through the paper right there at the end and wreck my thing and be aggravated with myself. So one of those things that you learn along the way. Just set this sticker right here. So then I'm just folding it down. And you can use a bone folder if you don't have fingernails or whatever, but I have fingernails today, so I'm just going to use my fingernails. Just get it all kind of worked together and somewhat malleable, so it lays pretty much flat. This is what the cross section looks like. You can see it there. And there's that extra space in there for the thickness. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch 4 holes in it. I have this handy dandy doodad here. So I'm just going to eyeball it because it's not rocket science. I'm going to go, that's about center. I'm going to go slightly off center and just chibble. If you can see that very well. But I don't have the punch, the paper covering the whole punch. I'm just going to cut out like a half circle. You see, I basically just took a little half-moon nibble right out of there. When you open it up, it's a circle, obviously. And then, again, just eyeballing center and coming off a little ways and taking another nibble. And then, so you've got those 2 now, and they don't have to be perfect. And then again, just a little in from each edge. I suppose, half an inch or so. now I've got my cardstock strip all prepared. I have my piece of vellum here. And get out my wire cutters. Now for the wire part that keeps it all sturdy, I'm going to cut off a little better than 2 feet, I suppose. Again, I'm just eyeballing all this, so I suppose that's probably, well, maybe 2.5 feet. Always hold on to the end of those things because they fly up and scratch your glasses. So, and I hate that. Having scratched glasses is awful. So now what I'm going to do is just match the edges together, right, pull the wire down. This is just a steel wire. It's a dark annealed steel wire. I think it's pretty similar to baling wire, if not actually is baling wire, just not on the package. This is a 19 gauge. You could use an 18 gauge. Anything smaller than that, though, I think is going to be a little too soft to hold the shape that we want it to hold. So now that you've got it in half, just kind of make a little handle type shape at the end. Try to keep it somewhat even, but again, not rocket science. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to poke it up. Excuse me, goodness sakes. I'm going to poke it up through that hole to about the length that I want the handle to be. So, about that far. You don't want to shortchange yourself. And then, this wire is nice and malleable. I'm just going to bend it over my finger and put a little 90 in there. And that is going to sit right along the inside of that groove. That's where it comes up. And here on the one end is where we're going to poke it down. And then just fiddle with it until it's somewhat flattish. And pinch it over. I just use my fingers for this part, but if you can use a pliers or whatever, little hammer if you wanted to get it, try to get it really flat. If you do use a pliers or a hammer, be careful that you don't pinch that paper, because it'll cut the paper. So, and then I'm going to just go with the long end of the handle up through that hole. Try to get my handle about, even. And then I'm going to run this one down along the other side. Here's the first one we did. Here's the second one, and poke it down the hole. At this point, it looks pretty messy. Doesn't look like it's going to hold together. It's all kind of fiddly. Don't worry about any of that at this point. So here's what it looks like. You've got the handle now, and you've poked it up through the hole and run it along and down, and here's the end of it. And so what I'm going to do is just press all of that tight together and loop that around a couple of times. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a pliers here just to make life a little bit simpler. And then I'm just going to pinch that cut end in so I don't snag myself on it later. And that's what it looks like. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. And for the sake of balance, I'm going to wind it around from the other side of the pole. See, at this point it's already substantially more sturdy and easier to handle. So again, just nip it off. Pinch it down. And pull off. So now, what I'm going to do, just to give everything an added bit of staying power, peel some, this is just plain old masking tape. I'm just going to run this tape right along. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to put a couple more pieces of tape just here. On the inside, on this short leg, I'm going to go ahead and tape it down right along there. And it doesn't matter if you have tape hanging over the edge, you can trim that up later. And then just the other side here. Sometimes it's easier if you lay the tape down, if you can get it to not stick to you for a moment. It's tricky. And then you just use this leading edge. I'll do it this way so you can see. Just use that leading edge and lay it on there. Press carefully, and then your tape is all perfectly lined up. Which is fun if you need it to be perfect. Which we don't. Not today. So then you just sandwich the whole thing up. Press it all down. If you wanted to, you could run some tape along here. I kind of like the, pseudo steampunky look we've got going on, so I'm going to leave it. Now, just take your sheet of vellum, and it's going to go right inside there, just like that. Just line it up there, just like I showed you on the last one. And then the vellum sits all the way down to the crease. Take it down. Trim up the edge here. I don't have any scissors. diffuser sitting over here on this side of the work table, so I'll just run it right through here quick. Now, this is why we did the wire the complicated way that we did, because when you try to hold up your diffuser, it won't hold up until you press right there in the center, just like you would if you were trying to hold a sheet of paper, like so it would keep from flopping over. You give it that little bit of a V right in the middle. Just like that. No trick to it. And, you know, obviously be careful. Like my one that I made, I bent it a little too far and there's a crinkle in my diffuser, which wasn't terrible. But... And then I just have, mine is connected here to a third hand helper. Just has these little alligator clips, and it's a weighted base. You can get them at the hardware store, or it's like usually with the soldering supplies. And then you just take your little alligator clips and line it up. And this thing is completely articulated and adjustable, so you can get it however you like it. It's a little bit fussy, but once you get it set up, you don't have to mess with it anymore. So you can see how the light is really harsh and different. Go ahead and lay this one down just a smidge. And you can put that diffuser up there and get it all set. And now you've got some way nicer, softer light to do your videos in. Play with your adjustment and your tripod and everything and get it all set up. Like right now I kind of have a really bright spot over here where I've got the light leaking down behind it, so I need to bend my wire a little bit and get it all just exactly the way that I want. And that's how I did it.